Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, The Only Hope for Human Society. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very attached to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, and he left us this jewel of a poetic glorification of the same. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage. Because after the flood is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, we've arrived at the 22nd chapter of the Madhya-lila, the process of devotional service. In the 22nd chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the process of devotional service. In the beginning, he describes the truth about the living entity and the super excellence of devotional service. He then describes the uselessness of mental speculation and mystic yoga. In all circumstances, the living entity is recommended to accept the path of devotional service as personally explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The speculative method of the so-called jnanis is considered a waste of time, and that is proved in this chapter. An intelligent person should abandon the processes of karmakanda, jnanakanda, and mystic yoga. One should give up all these useless processes and take seriously to the path of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's life will be successful. If one takes to Krishna consciousness fully, even though he may sometimes be agitated due to having previously practiced mental speculation and yogic mysticism, he will be saved by Lord Krishna himself. The fact is that devotional service is bestowed by the blessings of a pure devotee, Samahatma Sudurlabha. A pure devotee is the supreme transcendentalist, and one has to receive his mercy for one's dormant Krishna consciousness to be awakened. One has to associate with pure devotees. If one has firm faith in the words of a great soul, pure devotional service will awaken. In this chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu differentiates between a pure devotee and others. He also describes the characteristics of a pure devotee. A devotee's most formidable enemy is association with women in an enjoying spirit. Association with non-devotees is also condemned because it is also a formidable enemy on the path of devotional service. One has to fully surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna and give up attraction for women and non-devotees. The 6 symptoms of fully surrendered souls are also described in this chapter. Devotional service has been divided into 2 categories: regulative devotional service and spontaneous love. There are 64 items listed in regulative devotional service, and out of these 64, the last 5 are considered very important. By practicing even one of the 9 processes of devotional service, one can become successful. Speculative knowledge and mystic yoga can never help one in devotional service. Pious activity, non-violence, sense control, and regulation are not separate from devotional service in its pure form. If one engages in devotional service, all good qualities follow. One does not have to cultivate them separately. Spontaneous devotional service arises when one follows a pure devotee who is awakened to spontaneous love of God. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu describes the symptoms of devotees who are already situated in spontaneous love of God. He also describes the devotees who are trying to follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees. Text 1. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Tam Karunarvanam Karunarnavam Kalau Apyati Gudeyam Bhaktir Yena Prakashita. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is an ocean of transcendental mercy. And although the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is very confidential, he has nonetheless manifested it so nicely, even in this age of Kali, the age of coral. Text 2. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 3. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have described one's relationship with Krishna in various ways. This is the subject matter of all the Vedas. Krishna is the center of all activities. 4. Now I shall speak about the characteristics of devotional service, by which one can attain the shelter of Krishna and his loving, transcendental service. Text 5. A human being's activities should be centered only on devotional service to Lord Krishna. That is the verdict of all Vedic literatures, and all saintly people have firmly concluded this. Text 6. When the mother, Vedas, Shruti, is questioned as to whom to worship, she says that you are the only Lord and worshipable object. Similarly, the corollaries of the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, give the same instructions, just like sisters. The Puranas, which are like brothers, follow in the footsteps of their mother. O enemy of the demon Mura, the conclusion is that you are the only shelter. Now I have understood this in truth. Purport. This quotation from Vedic literature was spoken to the Lord by great sages. Text 7. Krishna is the non-dual absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although he is one, he maintains different personal expansions and energies for his pastimes. Purport. The Lord has many potencies, and he is non-different from all these potencies. Because the potencies and the potent cannot be separated, they are identical. Krishna is described as the source of all potencies, and he is also identified with the external potency, the material energy. Krishna also has internal potencies, or spiritual potencies, which are always engaged in his personal service. His internal potency is different from his external potency. Krishna's internal potency and Krishna himself, who is the potent, are always identical. Text 8. Krishna expands himself in many forms. Some of them are personal expansions, and some are separate expansions. Thus he performs pastimes in both the spiritual and the material worlds. The spiritual worlds are the Vaikuntha planets, and the material universes are the Brahmandas, gigantic globes governed by Lord Brahma. Text 9. Expansions of his personal self, like the quadruple manifestations of Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva, descend as incarnations from Vaikuntha to this material world. The separated expansions are the living entities. Although they are expansions of Krishna, they are counted among his different potencies. Purport. The personal expansions are known as Vishnu Tattva, and the separated expansions are known as Jiva Tattva. Although the Jivas, living entities, are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are still counted among his multi-potencies. This is fully described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 7.5. Apariyamitastvanyam prakritim vidime param jivabhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another, superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material, inferior nature. Although the living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels, they are Prakriti, not Purusha. Sometimes Prakriti, a living entity, attempts to imitate the activities of the Purusha. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, living entities conditioned in this material world claim to be God. They are thus illusioned. A living entity cannot be on the level of a Vishnu Tattva or the personality of Godhead at any stage. Therefore, it is ludicrous for a living entity to claim to be God. Advanced spiritualists would never accept such a thing. Such claims are made to cheat ordinary, foolish people. The Krishna consciousness movement declares war against such bogus incarnations. The bogus propaganda put out by people claiming to be God has killed God consciousness all over the world. Members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be very alert to defy these rascals who are presently misleading the whole world. One such rascal known as Pondraka appeared before Lord Krishna, and the Lord immediately killed him. Of course, those who are Krishna's servants cannot kill such imitation gods, but they should try their best to defeat them through the evidence of Shastra, authentic knowledge received through the disciplic succession. Text 10. The living entities, jivas, are divided into two categories. Some are eternally liberated, and others are eternally conditioned. 11. Those who are eternally liberated are always awake to Krishna consciousness, and they render transcendental loving service at the feet of Lord Krishna. They are to be considered eternal associates of Krishna, and they are eternally enjoying the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. 12. Apart from the ever-liberated devotees, there are the conditioned souls, who always turn away from the service of the Lord. They are perpetually conditioned in this material world and are subjected to the material tribulations brought about by different bodily forms in hellish conditions. Text 13. Due to his being opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy, Maya. He is thus ready to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, the inimical behavior of other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by the demigods. 14 and 15. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires, and when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy, Maya. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician, whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with devotional service to Lord Krishna, and in this way he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. Purport. An explanation of verses 8 through 15 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha. The Lord is spread throughout the creation in his quadruple expansions and incarnations. Krishna is fully represented with all potencies in each and every personal extension. But the living entities, although separated expansions, are also considered one of the Lord's energies. The living entities are divided into two categories, the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. Those who are ever liberated never come into contact with Maya, the external energy. The ever-conditioned souls are always under the clutches of the external energy. This is described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Daivi yesha gunamayi, mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. The Nitya Baddhas are always conditioned by the external energy, and the Nitya Muktas never come in contact with the external energy. Sometimes an ever-liberated personal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends into this universe just as the Lord descends. Although working for the liberation of conditioned souls, the messenger of the Supreme Lord remains untouched by the material energy. Generally, ever-liberated personalities live in the spiritual world as associates of Lord Krishna, and they are known as Krishna Parishad, associates of the Lord. Their only business is enjoying Lord Krishna's company. And even though such eternally liberated persons come within this material world to serve the Lord's purpose, they enjoy Lord Krishna's company without stoppage. The ever-liberated person who works on Krishna's behalf enjoys Lord Krishna's company through his engagement. The ever-conditioned soul, provoked by lusty desires to enjoy the material world, is forced to transmigrate from one body to another. Sometimes he is elevated to higher planetary systems, and sometimes he is degraded to hellish planets and subjected to the tribulations of the external energy. Due to being conditioned by the external energy, the conditioned soul within this material world gets two kinds of bodies: a gross body and a gross material body and a subtle material body composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Due to the gross and subtle bodies, he is subjected to the threefold miseries: Adhyatmika, Adhibautika, and Adidaivaka. Miseries arising from the body and mind, other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by demigods from higher planetary systems. The conditioned soul subjected to the threefold material miseries is ceaselessly kicked by Maya, and this is his disease. Ceaselessly kicked by Maya. This is his disease. If by chance he meets a saintly person who works on Krishna's behalf to deliver conditioned souls, and if he agrees to abide by his order, he can gradually approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 16. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself to your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. Purport. This verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2.25. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are saying, Hare, O energy of the Lord, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sita Rama, or Lakshmi Narayana. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy, consort, so that he may engage in their transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. Text 17. Devotional service to Krishna is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul: karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. But all the others are dependent on bhakti. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, jnana and yoga cannot give the desired results. Purport. In the Vedic scriptures, stress is sometimes given to fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, and the mystic yoga system. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results without being touched by Krishna Bhakti, devotional service. In other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love for Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 126 states, Sabai pung sangpado dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahai tuki apratiyata yayatma supersediti. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Karma, jnana, and yoga cannot actually awaken love of Godhead. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service, and the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in other so-called achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally, face to face. But when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana, and yoga. Text 19. Naishkarmyam apjuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanamalam niranjanam kutak punak shashvarabhadram ishware nacharpitam karma yadapya karma karanam. When pure knowledge is beyond all material affinity, but is not dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it does not appear very beautiful, although it is knowledge without a material tinge. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of a Lord? How can they be very attractive? Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12. Even after writing many Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva felt very morose. Therefore, his spiritual master, Narada Dev, told him that he could be happy by writing about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up to that time, Srila Vyasadeva had written the Karma-kanda and Jnana-kanda sections of the Vedas. But he had not written about Upasana-kanda or Bhakti. Thus his spiritual master Narada chastised him and advised him to write about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore Vyasadeva began writing Srimad Bhagavatam. 20. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, those who are engaged in meditation and mental speculation, and even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras, are not able to obtain any auspicious results, although they are engaged in auspicious activities, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I therefore repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose glories are always auspicious. This is also a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.17. Text 21. Speculative knowledge alone, without devotional service, is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, Even without knowledge, one can obtain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. Shall we read that again? This is a very important verse. Kevala jnana mukti dite nari bhakti vine. Krishnon mukhe se mukti. Hai vina jnane. Speculative knowledge alone, without devotional service, is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, even without knowledge, one can attain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. Purport. One cannot attain liberation simply by speculative knowledge. Even though one may be able to distinguish between Brahman and matter, one's liberation will be hampered if one is misled into thinking that the living entity is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one falls down again onto the material platform because considering oneself the Supreme Person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is offensive. When such a person comes in contact with a pure devotee, he can actually become liberated from material bondage and engage in the Lord's service. A prayer by Bilvamangal Thakur is relevant here. Bhaktis tvayi stitarata bhagavan yadi syad daivenanak palati divya kishori murtihi mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmartha kama gatayak samaya pratikshaha. O my Lord, if one engages in your pure devotional service with determination, you become visible in your original, transcendental, youthful form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as liberation is concerned, she stands before the devotee with folded hands, waiting to render service. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are all automatically attained without separate endeavor. Caitanya-caritämrta 107. Text 22. Shreyak shritim bhaktim udasyate vivo klishyanti ye kevala bodha labdaye tesham asau kleshala eva shishyate nanyad yata stula tusha vagatinam. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His endeavors are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. His labor becomes fruitless. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-4. Text 23. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. This is a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita 7:14. We're reading now how it is that Bhaktisiddhanta said that this scripture, Caitanya-caritämrta, one can revive Shastra simply from this scripture, because it's all there. how to put it together properly. Text 25. The living entity is bound around the neck by the chain of Maya because he has forgotten that he is eternally a servant of Krishna. Text 25. If the conditioned soul engages in the service of the Lord and simultaneously carries out the orders of his spiritual master and serves him, he can get out of the clutches of Maya and become eligible for surrender at Krishna's lotus feet. Purport. It is a fact that every living entity is eternally a servant of Krishna. This is forgotten due to the influence of Maya, which induces one to believe in material happiness. Being illusioned by Maya, one thinks that material happiness is the only desirable object. This material consciousness is like a chain around the neck of the conditioned soul. As long as he is bound to that conception, he cannot get out of Maya's clutches. However, if, by Krishna's mercy, he gets in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, abides by his order, and serves him, engaging other conditioned souls in the Lord's service, he then attains liberation and Lord Sri Krishna's shelter. Text 26. The followers of the Varnashram institution accept the regulative principles of the four social orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the four spiritual orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders, but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of material life. Purport. One may become a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, or one may perfectly follow the spiritual principles of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, but immediately one falls down into a hellish condition unless one becomes a devotee. Without developing one's dormant Krishna consciousness, one cannot be factually elevated. The regulative principles of Varnashram Dharma in themselves are insufficient for attainment of the highest perfection. This is confirmed in the following two quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2 and 3. Text 27. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahminical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms, the Kshatriyas have come. From his waist, the Vaishyas have come. And from his legs, the Shudras have come. These four orders and their spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. Text 28. If one simply maintains an official position in the four Varnas and Ashramas, but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. Text 29. There are many philosophical speculators, jnanis, belonging to the Mayavad school, who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayana. But their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. Text 30. Yen ye rabindaksha vimuktimaninas tvayastabhavad avishuddha buddhayaha aruya krich trena padam tatat padanchado nadrita yushvad angrayaham. O lotus-eyed one, those who think they are liberated in this life, but do not render devotional service to you, must be of impure intelligence. Although they accept severe austerities and penances and rise to the spiritual position, to impersonal Brahman realization, they fall down again because they neglect to worship your lotus feet. Purport. This verse is quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Text 31. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy, will immediately vanish. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.34, it is stated, Riter tam yat pritiyeta na pritiyeta chatmani tadvidyat atmanomayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Wherever there is light, there cannot be darkness. When a living entity becomes Krishna conscious, he is immediately relieved of all material, lusty desires. Lusty desires and greed are associated with rajas and tamas, passion and darkness. When one becomes Krishna conscious, the modes of passion and darkness immediately vanish, and then the mode of goodness, sattva-guna, remains. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he can make spiritual advancement and understand things clearly. This position is not possible for everyone. When a person is Krishna conscious, he continuously hears about Krishna, thinks about him, worships him, and serves him as a devotee. If he remains in Krishna consciousness in this way, the darkness of Maya certainly will not be able to touch him. And it's 8 o'clock. We'll stop there, the reading. Hare Krishna. This is the nicest exposition of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness I've ever read. Lord Chaitanya, speaking to Sanatana Goswami about pure devotional service. Hare Krishna. All right, if there's anything that came out in your mind that stuck and you want to reflect or discuss, please be our guest.
First is a comment from Brian Phillips.
Bhakta Brian Phillips, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya, glories to Prabhupada. One of the steadiest listeners since we started doing this. Amazing.
And Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna.
She says, Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and your transcendental daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's Sri Caitanya-caritämrta.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Rati Manjari says, Jai Guru Maharaj, bring on all that transcendental jazz. Sudevi Dasi says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Dasi.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Each day I am so happy and happier to be here with you. My ears are open. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Keep them open. This is how you get there. Just by pouring the nectar of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta through the ears. Drinking through your ears. The nectar of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta.
From Saloni Sachi Sundari.
Saloni Sachi Sundari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you. All glories to the nectar of Caitanya-caritämrta.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
There's another comment here from Brian Phillips.
Dr. Brian, go ahead.
He says, oh wow, I'd forgotten how clear and reassuring this chapter is. Absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much for redelivering to us all once more.
I was thinking the same thing as I started to read it. I just said it to, after the reading also, I said the same thing. This is just the clearest exposition of pure devotional service. It comes in Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev does it very nicely. Krishna does it to Uddhava in the 11th canto very nicely. Krishna does in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita very nicely. But this is especially comprehensive, but at the same time simple and sweet. Very wonderful. We can't glorify these books enough. And by the way, I'm reading from the manuscripts that have the latest polish edits in them. It's so clear that they have Prabhupada's empowerment and blessing. Hare Krishna.
Vaisheshika Prabhu says Hare Krishna.
Vaisheshika Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Where are you? I want to talk to you. I'm going to call you right after we finish. I'm going to call you in less than half an hour.
From Noel.
Bhakti Noel, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I am grateful to hear you read and help my dormant Krishna consciousness awaken.
Hare Krishna.
These readings keep my devotional service grounded.
Well, you just made my day.
Something from Attila.
Attila.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada said once, I heard that today, Krishna can forgive all our past sinful activities in 1 minute if we are following this text. A human being's activities should be centered only on devotional service to Lord Krishna. So we can do everything and offer to Krishna. Do I understand the right way? So the Krishna consciousness means everything that we do in our life is to offer to Krishna and serve Krishna, never mind what we are doing.
Well, that's not true. Never mind what we are doing. We can't do sinful activities and offer them to Krishna. Our devotional service has to be directed by the previous acharyas and our spiritual master and the Vaishnavas who are following them and the Shastras. We can't just do anything and think that we're doing devotional service. Of course, it is a fact, as mentioned in the 18th chapter, the 57th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, in the purport, where Prabhupada says, if before you do an activity that's your occupational duty, and think Krishna has appointed me to this duty, now I should do it very nicely. That's the beginning of pure Krishna consciousness. It's the beginning. But we can't do whimsical things, just anything, and then offer that to Krishna. We have to offer things to Krishna in the way that is pleasing to him. So you may be a lawyer, you may be a doctor, you may be a dentist, you may be a philosopher, a teacher, whatever. You can do that activity for Krishna by giving the fruits of the activity to Krishna. This connects us to Krishna and purifies the activity. But pure devotional service is different. Pure devotional service is given directly to Krishna according to his desire. And what is that devotional service? Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaisha sajjante parijane priyosime. Always think of him, become his devotee, offer homage to him. So if you're doing that, you may be working in an office, just like a businessman working in an office. He has the pictures of his family there on his desk or on his wall where he's working, and every once in a while he looks at them because he's doing it for them. He's doing it to support them. So if you're doing any job and you have Krishna's pictures, and you look at Krishna and you remember him and think, I'm doing this for Krishna, and you take the money that you make and you make a nice altar and you clean it and you offer nice food, flowers and decorations and all those things, and invite people over, cook prasadam, make them Krishna conscious, then you're performing pure devotional service. Hare Krishna.
From Vijay Lakshmi. Hare Krishna.
Hey Vijay, Hare Krishna. Oh Vijay Lakshmi, Hare Krishna.
From Rinalini.
Rinalini, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for sharing this wonderful nectar with us. And a comment from Yaduttama.
Yaduttama, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, my obeisances to you and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Your attachment to reading Prabhupada's books is the tune that makes our hearts dance. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why is the external energy referred to as a witch in verse 14 and 15? It seems like we are at fault for falling away from the Lord, and that Maya Devi is just doing her service. Should we not respect her?
Well, it's a poetic expression or a poetic description of the material energy. Because what does Maya do? She causes us to forget Krishna. So the pure devotees, they don't appreciate that. On the other hand, if we surrender to Krishna fully, then Maya Devi will come to us and serve us and help us in our service. Then she's no longer a witch. But as long as she's making us forget about Krishna, she's a witch. Therefore Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings also, why are you sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya? Bhaktivinoda Thakur right there uses the same word. When Maya is performing her duty to make us forget Krishna, she's a witch. You should stay away from her. When you're a pure devotee and she's serving you to help you serve Krishna, then you can associate. But that doesn't mean you associate with the material energy for sense gratification. It means you're using the material energy in service to Krishna. That spiritualizes the material energy, and you're no longer under the witch called Maya. Hare Krishna.
Shantarupa Devidasi says, thank you for this sunshine.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
And Braj Balaba.
Hey Braj, Haribo.
He has a few questions. He says, the first one is Krishna Bhakti considered pious?
Oh, you wrote these questions to me. I was going to write them down in my Skype chat box to you. Krishna consciousness is automatically considered pious activity, but it's more than pious activity. Because simple pious activity will get you another birth in this material world. But Krishna consciousness will not get you a birth in this material world, bhakti yoga. Because yes, it's automatically pious activity. But it's more than pious activity. In other words, even if you are not fully Krishna conscious and you engage in activities of Krishna consciousness, even innocently, without knowledge, you are performing automatically pious activity. Because anything done for Krishna is automatically pious, but it's transcendentally pious. And it gives a different result than simply doing something, planting trees, digging wells, doing pious activities that are building dharmshalas, feeding the poor, building a hospital. These are pious activities because they're welfare activities for others. This is described in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. You can read about it. Pious activity is activity that is done for others, less for oneself, and gives one some peace from detachment from the fruits of activities. Mode of goodness. You read the Bhagavad Gita, analyze the verses. So many verses which described how if you do things, if you eat things, if you think things, if you understand things in a way that makes you attached to the fruits of your work, that's impious activity. But pious activity is when those same things are done for the benefit of others in detached service. But devotional service, as we've heard here from Lord Chaitanya, is something more. It is transcendental activity because it's sanctioned by Krishna and his pure devotees, and it's done for the pleasure of Krishna in a way that's favorable to Krishna. That's pure devotional service. Okay? Hare Krishna.
And the second question is in verse 22-25. Says, when followed, a devotee becomes eligible for shelter at Krishna's feet. How is it guaranteed? I assume only Krishna can do that?
It's guaranteed because Krishna becomes attracted to you. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshastinapriya ye bhajanti tamam bhaktya mayite teshu chapyaham. I'm equal to everyone. I'm not averse, I'm not attracted to anyone. But anyone who renders devotional service to me in love, he's my friend, and I am a friend to him. He's a friend to me. Hare Krishna.
Next is from Bhakta Ben.
Huh?
From Ben in Wales.
Oh, Bhakta Ben in Wales. Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was thinking about how grateful I am for you being in mine and all of our lives whilst on Sankirtan today.
Oh, thank you so much. If I can just somehow or other connect with Sankirtan, I'll be a happy camper. Thank you.
Yes, sir, I just wanted to say thanks.
Well, thanks to you for going out and distributing these books to the people. There's never been a time when it's more needed.
Brian Phillips comments also, we are indeed so very lucky. And something from Rati Manjari.
Okay. You get the last word in, Murati.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. This prayer in verse 16 which you read tonight is completely applicable to my situation. I found it spot on and I want to learn it. Please permit me to quote it. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me.
Hare Krishna.
If you have any further comments on this, I would be eager to hear them.
There's nothing for me to comment. That verse says everything.
She also wrote, I am wondering who is the person praying like this?
It's a pure devote. It's Rupa Goswami's verse. But it's I think it's Bilva Mangal Thakur. Yes, it's Bilva Mangal Thakur, if I remember right. It's found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but I think it's quoted from, I'm not completely sure. I think it was stated, isn't it, in the verse? Look at the verse. You have the verse on your screen. You must be able, otherwise you wouldn't be up. Got that verse? Got it?
It says it's quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Yeah.
That's all it says.
Yeah, it's Rupa Goswami. I'm not sure who said it. I'm absolutely positive. I wouldn't want to give you misinformation. We'd have to do some research. But right now, I have to move on. It's 8:20 and I have to make a phone call before we do our Damodarastakam for Kartik. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, Shri Kartik Vrat ki jai. This is a nice vrat for Kartik, huh? Hearing Caitanya-caritämrta every day. Sama Veda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Prem Anandi Hari Hari Bol. See, tomorrow night, same time, same station, same subject. Hare Krishna. See ya.